Okay, so welcome to my garage, and as you can see I've got a lovely stack of soaking wet timber. So it's absolutely chucking it down. I've just been and brought this, so I'm leaving it like that so the water can run off. But that's what I'm going to be building the duck shed out of. Now this is going to be interesting because you know what it looks like, I don't. So I'm making this up as I go along. So I've made a start already. Cut the first board like that. And this is going to be one of our roof beams. And then this section here, cut that down to that size. And that is going to be the frame for our wall. So the only offcuts I'm getting are these little triangles, which I might find use for later on. But I'll quickly run through how I did that. So these boards were 4.8 metres long, and I cut them in half to around 2.4 metres to get them in the car. I say around because I didn't have anything other than a saw with me, and I used the balance method where you literally balance it on your hand, and roughly where the balance point is will be halfway. So they're within a couple of centimetres of each other, which I think is pretty good, but they're not accurate enough. So, but yeah, I then took one of those planks and literally just held it up until I found an angle that I went, yep, I'm happy with that angle. Took the tape measure and marked halfway, so this is roughly 2.4, so we know 1.2 is halfway. So that will be about there. I then went about 5 centimetres along, like that, and measured the distance there and put that in half. So that is the middle of the board. I then use the spirit level and put a level line across there, and that is the line I cut on. Okay, so now you've cut that board in half, they should both have exactly the same angle on the end. And you take the shorter one out of those two boards, and then you want to draw a curve on it. Now there's loads of complicated calculations you can do, but I chose the nice and simple string method. So you're basically making a giant compass. So underneath the yellow tub there, I've got a block of wood which the string is wrapped around. So that is my central point. Now I just use a pencil to trace the arc on the wood. Moving the tub closer to the wood gives you more of a shallower arc. No, gives you a steep, sharper arc. Moving it further away gives you a shallower arc. But yeah, literally just a case of take it to a point, tie a loop in the string, like that, and you can use your pencil to do an arc. So the best thing to do is line up one end of the board, line up the other end of the board, like that. And just check in your middle that you're at the right depth you want as well. And then you can just draw your arc from there. I then use the jigsaw to cut it out. Okay, I then laid one board on top of the other board and marked the second board and cut it to exactly the same curve. So you've now got a mirror image of the two. I put a clamp at the top there just to hold them together temporarily, and then at the bottom I could mark, in this case it was about 3 inches up, and draw a straight line across. And cut that off. So that is your final finished shape. Goes up to a point and then down, and I can then use that as a template to cut all the rest. Okay, so you're probably looking at this piece I've cut off and thinking that's a lot of waste there. So that's not all going to be waste. So what I've done is I've temporarily propped up the roof frame, and I've measured from there down to the floor. It's about 60 centimetres. So I've taken this curved piece and I've measured halfway and marked halfway. I've then measured off 30 centimetres in both directions, so that's my 60 centimetre piece that's going to go in there. So I've taken one and I've cut it off, so I can now put that in place behind it like that and draw a line to match my roof line, and then I can cut that board and end up with something like that. So that is what the walls are going to look like. That's what the roof's going to look like. So yeah. So that roof structure on its own isn't going to be strong enough because of the way these are jointed together. So I was going to put a screw through at the top here to hold the top bits together, but to be honest, because of the shape of it, it wants to pull apart at the bottom there. So I'm also going to use, because I'm going to end up with a lot of these, because I'm going to end up 2 per thing, and the front and the back ones are going to overhang the walls, so they aren't going to be used. So I'm going to have some of these spare, and I can then use that timber underneath there to create an A-frame. I just haven't quite worked out how yet. So yeah, let's make some more frames. I worked out I needed about 7 of them, or 7 planks turned into 14 of those shapes. So now I've got one of those, I can just simply trace round, use the same one you're tracing round every time, trace round one, cut it out, and then they should all be exactly the same. So yeah, let's get on with that. Okay, so that's all the roof beams cut. I do need to sand those frayed edges off, but I'll do that in a bit. So I'm now looking at the A-frame here. So I've laid that back out. I've measured down that length there and got the halfway mark there and got the halfway mark there. Measured across between the two of them. That was 80 centimetres. So I've taken the curved board here, find the halfway mark on there, 40 centimetres off on each side, lined it all up, and then just drawn along where the beam sits. So if I now cut that out there, I can fix that in place to there and to there, and that'll stop the frame from splitting apart. What I can't decide is whether to leave it with it being large in the middle or copy that curve up on there as well. I mean, that'll be more cutting, but will it look better? That's the question. Okay, so I've put the roof frames together now. I did look at this and I decided I do prefer them as the narrow with the curve to them. But I thought rather than cutting all of them, that most of them are going to be inside, and this is for ducks. I only need to cut the outside ones. So there's 2 of them that are thinner, and then the rest of them I've just used the whole piece without cutting it down, because that's going to be inside the frame. So I know this is going to be a bit backwards, but the next thing I'm going to do is look at putting the roof sheeting on. Now normally when you're doing anything like this, you would start with the floor, then build the walls, then put the frame up, then put the roofing material on last. But because this is only going to be a small project, I'm going to try and put it on now. Now, unfortunately, again, I had to cut this down to get it in the car, and it was a bit of a hack job. So, as you can see, it's not sitting straight because I cut it at an angle. So, that is the factory edge there, and that is the factory edge there. So I know that that angle there and that angle there are both at 90 degrees. So I am going to work off of those points and then cut the rest of it straight afterwards. I have got 5 A-frames there, which I want to fix across the whole length of this. So I know that the middle one is going to go down that join there. That is going to be the middle. So I can discount 3 of them because I know that one's there and ignore the other 2. So I've then got 2 more to go on this side. So I've measured from the centre point there to the outside edge, and decided that I want about a 10cm overhang. So there's going to be one frame right on the edge there, wherever that ends up. I've then wanted to come back about 10cm in. So I've actually worked back 15cm to allow for this edge to be wonky. So that is 45 from the middle there to there, and then I'll do 45 on the other side as well. That'll give it a internal width of 90cm. So right, let's draw some lines down these boards, and then we've got the interesting bit of trying to attach these to the frames. Okay, so I've drawn a line down there, and I've drilled the holes just offset, so I can line that line up with one of these A-frames, put the screws through, and they should go into the timber there. Now obviously that is a flat board, that is a curved line, so I'm hoping if I start at the top, put the first screw in, and then work my way along, it will just pull itself neatly to the curve. I've got to start at one end and work my way along, because if I do both ends and then try to pull it in the middle, it's going to have to stretch. So yeah, let's put you on a stand and see how this goes. So I've fallen at the first hurdle, so I'm going to try longer screws, because they don't actually touch the frame at the moment, and that'll pull it down, and then I can replace them with the short screws afterwards if it works. Well, that seemed to work. Maybe you're doing a good idea to maybe find out how they do skateboard ramps before this. But yeah, that's curved nicely. But the beauty of this is that that board wants to straighten itself out, so it's actually putting up against this beam, making the roof stronger. Not that anything other than ducks is ever going to sit on this roof anyway, but it's worth noting. Right, so I'm thinking if I now put the one in the middle here and the outside one in, that will make it even stronger. Right, let's put you on a time lapse. So there we go, that is one roof shaped structure. So if you're thinking of doing one of these yourself and you're thinking you might use a OSB on the top, don't. Yes, it is possible to do it. As you can see, I have managed to do it. However, it would have been so much easier just using planks or tongue and groove to do the top. And also, oh, noisy. If you're on the inside, obviously you could then be looking up to it as a finished ceiling, this is for ducks. They don't complain too much about interior decor, so they're fine with the OSB top, but a series of planks there would look so much better. So yeah, now I've got that all secure and I'm sure everything is 100% square. Yeah, I can now trim this board. You can see what I mean. It sort of slopes down and then back up again. That was from where I had to cut it in the car park in the middle of the rain, so I think I did quite a good job only being that far out. But I want to trim all of those so they're level, and again on this side here, that's where the OSB comes to. That's the shortest one out of all of them, so I've got to make sure I draw a straight line off of all of those and trim that. Same on this side, and get the same length on the other side where it actually overhangs a bit. So, but yeah, I won't bother recording that. And then once I've got that done, the next section is putting a membrane over the top to keep it waterproof. So yeah. Okay, so I've trimmed all the edges, everything is nice and square now. I have put some duct tape over the screw heads, and a piece of, well, an offcut of pond liner over the top ridge there, just so that the waterproof coating that I put over the top of this doesn't rub and wear through. So I am going to use that, well, new but old PVC pond liner. If it's good enough for a pond, it should be good enough for a roof. Now it's going to be fun doing that in here, because that I believe is 5 metre square piece, which is massively bigger than I need, and I've not got a lot of space to work in. The other problem with PVC liners is when they're cold, they're quite rigid, and it's not the warmest of days in here today. So but yeah, I'll put you on a time lapse and we'll see how we get on, and hopefully I should get a layer over the top of this. Okay, well, it's on. I don't think it's going to come as any surprise to you, but I don't like it. But yeah, the reason I don't like it is because of all these ridges and crinkles in it. So I'm hoping, I'm going to leave it overnight, and I'm hoping that they'll go out of it. I might give it a wipe over with a hot sponge, see if that helps smooth it. That side's not too bad, this side's even worse. But we'll see what it looks like tomorrow. And if it looks okay, then we can secure it all properly in position. If I still don't like the look of it, then the only other thing I can do is get some proper roofing felt and put that over it, and then I can put some nails through to hold the roofing felt in place, which I don't really want to do because I like the fact that this is one big sheet and doesn't leak, and being a pond liner it should last for 25 years without any issues. So we'll see what it looks like in the morning. Okay, so I've left it overnight to see if it flattens out anymore. It's better than it was yesterday. I still don't like it. I put the trim on anyway to see if that improved things. What I'm thinking is I'm going to leave it like it is for now. If I was to put roofing felt on there, that would make it heavier. So at the moment I can put this in place, it'll be waterproof, and then I can put roofing felt on top afterwards, if it hasn't flattened out by that point. So if I stand this up so I've got a bit more space to work, next thing to get on with is walls. Okay, so making it up as you go along. So I've already shown you how I was going to cut those for the walls. So they are going to secure onto the beams like that, and I'll just do the same as I've done there with some screws through to hold that in position like that. I was then going to nail boards over the outside of this to actually create the wall. So because I'm going to need 3 of these across here to hold the tops in line, I'm going to use a temporary piece of chipboard that I've got there. Then once the wall is all nailed in place, I can take the chipboard off again, and I can just use the ends there to secure it straight onto there. For the bottom, I will actually need a plate to go across the bottom there. So because I only brought the 6x1s, I'll just have to cut one of those in half down the length. I could have brought some smaller timber as well, it would have made more sense, but I didn't, so that's fine, I can work with it. So yeah, let's cut those down to size, cut that down to size, and build a frame. Okay, so that's the frames done, and that's the siding boards. I will cut them to size now. So, this is what they call feather edge boards. It is a wedge shape. Now, to my knowledge, you're supposed to use it with the thicker side to the bottom. So, I've set this slightly back because I'm not sure quite what I'm doing with the base. I might need to put another piece of wood in there. So the first one can be fixed on there, and that will still leave a gap for me to fix underneath if I want an extra board. If not, it just means that if any moisture runs down here, it can't get back to this frame, so that's good. So what I'll do is I'm going to pre-drill this and then nail it, just because I'm near the end of the board. I don't want it to split. It's not so essential in the middle, but I might just do it anyway. And normally you'd overlap them like that, so there's about 10 centimetres there and 2 centimetres there overlapping. Now I've measured this and I'm going to go for 3 centimetres overlap and 9 centimetres there, just because that means when I get to the top here it's a full board. If I was at 10 centimetre and 2 centimetre overlap, by the time I get to the top I'll have to cut one in half down the length. So yeah, so what I'm going to do, like I say, is I'll work my way up, but I'm going to drill through there and nail that one in place. Then the next board I'm going to drill through there and nail through both of them, so it's secured in 2 points on each board. Okay, so I've just finished up those sides and I've just quickly screwed them in place temporarily. So I should have said I was using ring shank nails, which look like that. They've got ridges all along the sides. These are the same sort of things they use for building pallets out of. So once you hammer them in, because of the ribs along the side, it shouldn't pull out quite so easily. So I tacked this in place quickly because I wanted to measure it, and I am amazed to find out it is actually square. So it is 145 centimetres between there and there. So I'm now going to have to look at building a front wall and a back wall for this. So front wall needs a small access panel for the ducks to get through. Back wall needs a big access panel for a door, so we can get in if we need to clean it inside. So some of it shouldn't be too bad. So bar straight across the bottom here gives you your base plate. That's easy. Go up the sides here, that gives you your straight line. Problem is, I'm going to have to work along this ridge here, but I don't want to fix anything to the roof just yet, because I've still got to get this half a mile down the road somehow. So at the moment, I've got 3 screws there to undo. That wall comes off. Roof is a big piece, but it's a manageable. I can lift it, I can move it. If I fix the walls onto it as well, I'm moving the whole thing as one, so that's just going to be too heavy. So it's going to be interesting. The other thing I've got to bear in mind is that's not where I'm building the wall to. That's where I'm building the wall to, because of these slats are going to overhang like that. And then I'm going to have to cut them at an angle to match the angle of that. But that's not too problem. I can build a frame square to that and literally just build it with the overhanging sections. But yeah, so I'm thinking next thing to do is cut some of that timber down into thinner pieces so I can actually work with it. I've not got a lot of space to work with. Right, this is going to be fun. Okay, that's the timber cut. I think I'm going to leave this for the dust to settle and come back to this evening. So, see you in a bit. Okay, so the dust has settled. I've spent a bit of time. I've built a framework at the front here. So I've fixed that to that, fixed piece from there to there, fixed piece from there to there. That is my 3 contact points, so they're the only pieces with screws into the other frame. So when it comes to taking this back apart so I can move it, that's where I'll take it apart. I've then fixed a place across the bottom here into that, and 2 uprights, and that is my basic frame for here. Then I've just added this extra piece in here. That's the doorway for the ducks to go through. So next step on this is to add the boards. So I've already marked out the tops of each of the boards on here, so they're at the right spacing. So I'm going to start from the doorway across. Then once I'm up to that level there, that's going to be a full board. I'll just put it straight over and cut that bit out afterwards. But yeah, I'm going to do each palanque individually because each one's going to have a unique angle at the end here. So it's going to take me a while, but it's going to look good. So, right, let's get on. I'm just trying to work out where to put you, because if I put you on the stand, you're going to be down here and you're not going to get much of a view. So, yeah. Okay, so you can see what I mean when I said I cut these, each one unique, to match the board there. And it gives that nice staggered edge that's going to go all the way along. Well, unfortunately, I've just realised I mucked up. Because you need to do that to both sets, otherwise you're going to end up with a gap like that. So that's irritating, but it also makes it kind of easier. Because what I can do now is I can just cut this straight all the way up. So I've got a square end here. Then all I've got to do is put a block of wood in there and cut the block of wood to match these. So yeah, that's just sped things up slightly, but irritating at the same time. So never mind. Okay, that's starting to take shape. Unfortunately, I miscalculated the amount of boards I was going to need for the side here. When I say that, I thought I ordered 20, and I actually only ordered 12. Because I thought they came in packs of 10, they came in packs of 6. So, yeah, I haven't got enough boards to finish this. And today is a Sunday, so I will have to go out tomorrow and buy some more boards. But yeah, that's doing well. I've still got to trim the top of that to cut that out. But that doesn't really matter even if I don't do it. So anyone worrying that the nails aren't going to hold because of where I pre-drilled them, unfortunately this beam here, because it's only framing the door, it's nothing strong, I thought I'll use this piece with a knot in. It's not structural, won't be a problem, but obviously it split when I put the nails through. And trying to get it off, the heads came off the nails before they pulled out. So there is no chance of this coming apart. So yeah, so that's, I'm a little bit stuck for today, but I'm thinking I can carry on and I can build the frame for the other side, and I can start putting the boards on the other side because I've still got some short offcuts there that are too small to use as a full length, but they'll do for either side of the doorway. So yeah, I'll probably look at doing that now. Okay, that's the framework built and fitted. Now I did think, shall I tempt fate and fix the boards to the frame? Because in theory it should be all be square, it should be fine. But I'm thinking, no, have the frame in position before you put any of the boards on. So my options are, I either leave this until the other side is done, or I try and turn this up the right way. So I'm going to try and turn it up so it's actually shed positioned, and then hopefully I can fix the boards on the other wall. I can work on both walls at the same time then. So this could be interesting. Okay, so surprisingly that's not actually too heavy at the moment. You can still just about move it on your own. But yeah, so there we go. So I've had a quick count up, and I reckon I need about 16 boards, 8 on each side. So I'll cut up everything I've got left there, all to the same length, and then work on fitting it. Okay, so that is as far as I can go today without any more planks. So tomorrow I will go out and buy the other planks for the walls. I've also got to work out what I'm doing for the floor there, because I've got timber to frame the floor, but I haven't actually got any boards to put on top of it. I could go with the chipboard because of it being cheap, but that's going to be very close to the water level, plus you're going to have wet ducts coming in and out. So I'm thinking I'll probably go for proper boards on the base there, because then if it ends up underwater it won't break down. So, and then I've got to work out I'm going to build a door on this as well. So yeah, I'll give that some thought overnight, and I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, so I'm hoping this is going to be bright enough so you can actually make it out. But yeah, it's the next day. I've got some more of the boards, and I've started putting them in, and I'm up to the ridge line here, so I'm starting to cut the ends at angles. Now normally all you do is you just measure off a certain distance that you need it, cut a block and just slide it along the underneath of the roof to know where to cut. Obviously this roof's curved and this line is going to end up straight, so I need to measure off of here, so it all gets incredibly complicated here, but I've just about worked out how to do it. Okay, so we have got 12cm boards. We have got 3cm overlap at the bottom and 9cm showing. So the first thing to do is to measure up 9cm from the bottom here and mark at the very end. And because I'm working on both of these, because this has an angle on both ends, you need to mark both ends the same. You're then going to measure from that point to the same on the other end to get your length of your next board up. If you measure from there, you're going to end up with that triangle missing. So I'll measure that and I'll cut this board to size. Okay, so now we'll take our board and clamp it on the next board down, so it's temporarily held in position. Right, and then you can measure down from the underside of that beam down the depth of the overlap, so that would be 9cm down from that beam, and mark your line. Now that will bring your board right up flush with this beam. I want it to just overlap slightly, so I'm going to mark down 8cm. So you should just do it at various points along. So from there, that's 8 there, that's 8 there. This pen is marking, it doesn't show up terribly well because this wood is still wet. Right, and then that is the line you cut along, which is about there. So we'll do that again for both sides, and if it's measured correctly, that should bring that line down to that corner there, and the board should fit. So let's cut that and see how it looks. Okay, there we go, and if I just line that up there, there we go, spot on. Just gives a little bit of cover on the beams all the way around. So now we can nail that in place. Okay, that's this side pretty much finished. Just a little bit of trim left to do, and put some mesh up in the top there. Now, just got the other side left to do, but I need to go and warm up because it is freezing in this garage today. So I've managed to get the back side of the shed finished. Unfortunately, I didn't record it because there's going to be a lot of standing around and head scratching. So even on time lapse, that would have been quite boring. But yeah, it's looking good. So I've done it exactly the same as the other side, just worked my way up with the boards. Once I got near the top, put the angles on the end there. The very top row here, I've gone up and over the door frame and literally nailed it all in place, then cut it out. And the piece I cut off went for the top of the door. The door is a simple rectangle frame there, and I've put a diagonal in after the thing just to make sure it doesn't sag afterwards. But with everything being double nailed, it should be fine. So there was something else I was going to tell you about that door. Ah yes, the overlap here. So I've offset the door frame because of the angle of it as it opens, so this didn't hit. I've extended the boards over by about a centimetre there, and that gives it a nice neat flush edge on the outside. And the hinges on this side I've had to pack out with little spacers just so they're actually flat. There's still a little bit of leaning it, which is why it's sort of got this springiness to it. But that's kind of useful, so just need to get a bolt for that, finish the trim work up, and then floor and we're done. So yeah, I think I've had enough mess for today, so I'll do that tomorrow. Okay, so I couldn't wait, and I cut everything to size ready for the floor, so let's get that built. Okay, so that is the floor finished. So I'm pretty much done on this now. There's still some bits of trim that I need to get done, and I do want to give it a go at paint, but I've got to leave it a week for it to dry out before I can actually paint it with anything. But yeah, so I'm thinking I shall stop recording now, and next time you see this I'll be putting it together again in the duck pond. So I don't actually know how I'm getting it down there yet. Still haven't worked that out. But yeah, so for me it'll probably be a couple of weeks. For you it shall be a couple of seconds. So see you in a bit. There we go, that is the duck house in place and finished. So I've put a temporary ramp on the front there just so the ducks can get in and out, but I'll probably replace that with something better. But yeah, I've got a video coming out, that should be out last week, of putting it in place. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, do leave a like and please subscribe. That will help me do future projects just like this one. So, right, I shall end this video here and I shall see you later.